All right, it is time to record my film reveal video. This is the video where I share my film that I shot on my recent trip to Death Valley. I have not yet seen the film, so you will be seeing the film as I see the film. So we'll go over stuff that worked, stuff that didn't work, and some of the sort of behind the scenes stuff. And I exposed a total of 18 sheets of film. It was all slide film, mostly Velvia, but also some Provia. And this is actually the first time I shot some Provia in a while, but we'll see what all we have. So here's my first photo from this batch of film. This is actually one of the later photos I shot in the trip. And I gotta say, so far, I'm kind of digging the look of this. It's got sort of a cool winter sort of look as far as the vegetation. I really like the way this cottonwoods look, but I'll see how it did in terms of sharpness. You know, it all looks pretty darn good. Just use a loop here. That's all very sharp. So this was shot with my Ritter camera, which is a very lightweight camera, and doesn't handle wind particularly well. But I waited for a really calm moment, which I would have to anyways, just because of all the grasses in there. But this was in sort of a soft reflected light. This was on Velvia. And well, you wouldn't know based on just looking at the photos that there's a road right here. So I also had to wait for a break between the road, but I'm cool with that. I like this is what caught my eye. I like the layers of the grasses, the sort of vegetation here that would be green during the summer and during the fall, but had this kind of cool red tones. I really like the look of those cottonwoods, but I really like that. Depth of field was a little tricky. So I had my plane of focus, basically making sure I had from this rock all the way through that tree, so a little front tilt in order to get everything in focus. But I'm happy with that. That's portfolio quality. I made 2 exposures of that, so the next one is gonna be the same. Basically the same exposure. I think I actually did the exposure ever so slightly different. This one seems like it's a hair darker, which might be a better exposure. Let's compare them. They're pretty similar. You know, it's hard to say, but you shoot doubles just because you want to make sure that, you know, nothing bad happens. But that is sharp, that is crisp, and pretty awesome that the Ritter camera jumped in as a good backup camera for me on the trip. I like the light quality back here. You get some sort of the cool tones. It's not overwhelmingly warm light. It's kind of pastels. So I'm very cool with that. So that's good. This trip was kind of a nightmare in some ways, but I ended up with some decent stuff. So this is my rock in the cracked mud. I made 2 exposures that were before sunrise, this being one of them. And I just wanted to have sort of the low level light hitting it, but soft light. And let's see how we did for sharpness. I'm okay. I really wish the top of the rock was sharper. It's okay, but it's not amazing. In all fairness, though, I set this shot up in the dark. I could have done better. Gotta say, I'm a little bummed by that. I'm sharp through here, but I don't quite have that rock in the depth of field. But we'll see. Same shot, different light, better exposure. And I mean, nothing changed as far as focus, so that's still going to be a little soft. Yeah. Oh, I'm bummed by that. I have the mud cracks perfect, but the rock is just enough out of focus where I wouldn't really be able to print that one very big. That kind of sucks. This was the photo I shot the morning my camera was destroyed. And it's the interesting rock textures on the Titus Canyon area. Not a very difficult photo to shoot at all, just a matter of just filling the frame with some interesting stuff. Just kind of a soft light. Not really reflected light, but it's kind of soft light. And in terms of sharpness, it's really good. Exposure's good. So that one did turn out very, very nicely. So I'm happy with that one there. Doesn't really have emotional appeal to it as much, but I think it's very fitting for the fact that I took this photo the day that my camera was shattered, and this is kind of a fragmented, shattered looking rock pattern. So definitely a shot that I'll be able to use. So pretty happy about that. And here's my double of that scene. This exposure is a bit brighter. What's happening is the light was changing as I made these exposures. Not a lot, but this one, if anything, is maybe a hair dark, but fine. And then this one is maybe a hair bright, but fine. So either of them would be just fine. But it's kind of interesting pattern there. So this is the last photo that I shot on the trip. I'm really hoping I got this one to be pretty sharp. This is reminiscent of a photo that I shot in 2012 that I call Soul of the Ancients, where it was a rock embedded within the roots of a bristlecone pine. And this was a ponderosa pine, and it had this rock embedded in there, but it's covered in frost. We'll see how that looks when I look at it under a loupe. And then it has just this interesting sort of feather-like detail. We'll see how I did here. The rock is good. It's nice and sharp. Those areas there are good. You can see the frost. She also mentioned that this is using a lens I haven't used a heck of a lot. I'm a little bright in some areas, but overall I'm good. So I think that photo would work, and that's basically what I was expecting it to look like. But what's interesting is with the frost, it kind of gives a little lighter tones in some areas. Otherwise, it might not have as much sort of micro contrast in areas. But that was f/45. I'm decent with that photo. So, and I also like the color contrast between the warm and sort of the cool. So that's cool. I'm good with that. Still a little bummed about the rock photo with the rock not in focus. Now, what's interesting is that this one doesn't appear to be quite as good. I'm not quite sure why that would be the case. Which is why it's good to shoot doubles. But if you look at this rock, kind of seems so-so. This one's tack sharp. Could have been wind. There's a slight breeze when I shot the second one. So that would make sense if I have a little bit of wind movement there versus the other one being very, very calm. So that's what my guess is. I don't think anything got bumped other than that. But that's why you shoot two. But cool with that one. So this is going to be my Provia shot of the, I have a couple Provia shots, but this is one of the Provia shots of the sunset over the Panamint Range. And this was one of the last photos that I shot of my 8x10 before it got destroyed. And It wasn't a super crazy sort of sunset where everything really lit up intensely, but this one does have a pretty cool look to it. I'm getting a little dark in the corners, but that's fine as I bump my camera there. But that's got a cool look to it. I like the look of the light hitting this cracked mud here because they kind of have these interesting textures and shapes that catch the light. Sharpness is good. I have pretty good detail in the mountains there. I mean, it's pushing the limits, but it also did when you look at it in person. I've never really blown things out, but I'm good with that shot. It's got a sort of cool look. I like the way that this looked like more like a lava flow than anything else. Might be a little hard to scan because of the corners, but it does give kind of a neat look to it. But that's Provia. And the next is the same scene, but Velvia. Interesting. So, I mean, this is not taken at the same time. This is taken a little bit later. But if I flip this, so we can see the same area with, two different films. The Velvia is a little bit more magenta-y. The Provia is a little more greenish. The mountains in the background, I guess the question is how much detail is in those shadows. There's enough. That's something a drum scan might be needed for. I honestly prefer the color rendition of the Velvia. I was really cool with this until I saw the Velvia rendition, which is honestly a little bit more realistic. Also appears to be very sharp. I don't know that there was much of a difference in the wind when I was shooting those. So they both look to be pretty good, but there'll be some choices to be made there. But with the Velvia, the clouds are kind of interesting, a little less harsh in some areas. Again, our corners are getting a little dark, but you get this kind of natural vignette to it. This is a 3-stop grad filter. At that point, I probably could have been using a 2-stop, but I didn't want to be changing things up. But it's kind of cool. I like the texture down in this area right here. But that's a cool shot. I'd say that's a keeper. This was the last photo. The Velvia exposure was the last photo that I shot on the Ebony before it got destroyed. So I like it. A bit of a tricky photo, but I do like that. A moody shot, which I think is fitting. I don't really like this one. As I was driving around in Zion, I saw this tree, and I noticed all the sediment in the background from a landslide area that had some interesting color separations in there, and it had rained a lot in the days before that, so it had some saturation to it, which was interesting. I like the winter cottonwood, but I don't know. The light isn't all that interesting. This was with a 600mm lens. A little hot for the exposure. It's sharp. It's very sharp. And I have another variation of that as well. Oh, this is on Provia, which may be why I'm not in love with it. I got a Velvia version of this one as well. I mean, it's okay, but it doesn't really seem to be saying much to me as a viewer. Like I set that one aside, I'll come back to the Velvia version of that scene. Back to that first scene that I photographed, the mountains. So this is Provia again. I'm getting a little bright there. I mean, there's still detail there. So if I scan that, I can work with that. But I am clearly pushing the limit on that particular area. though I do have some really nice detail in the mountains. This is probably a more appropriate time for me to have used a 3-stop filter. The other photos I probably could have used a 2-stop. We'll check the foreground too. It's probably my first exposure of that scene. I don't know. It'll be interesting to choose between the two Provias and the Velvia for this scene, just because they're all going to look a little different. So just as a reminder, so this is probably maybe the, I don't even know which of the Provia shots that was, but here's one where I'm a little darker in the foreground, a little darker on the edges. This one will probably scan better because I'm a little cleaner through there. I have good detail in the mountains. So between these two Provia shots, that one and that one, I'd say this would be my preference. In between that and the Velvia, there's Velvia, where I honestly think those mountains are getting a little dark there. So could very well be that that is my favorite from that particular variation, because I'll have more to work with. So hooray for Provia. All right, let's see what we have next here. This is interesting. So this is my cracked mud under last light. And if I nail the focus on this one, I'd say this is kind of a cool shot, because I was waiting for that last little bit of light where you're kind of in transition between sun and shade. And oh, my focus is not good. What happened? I'm good up top. I'm really good up top. But then I'm not good down here. Oh man, this sucks. I'm tack sharp here. I'm not as good here. I think it's because I'm not as familiar with the Ritter camera, and I just couldn't set it up in time. Oh, that kills me. That could have been a good photo. If I'd used the ebony for this one, I'm so much more versed with the ebony. I could have nailed this. Oh, I'm really bummed about that. That sucks. Here are some leaves. This was in Zion, and it had rained the day before, and these leaves had been kind of mushed down by snow, so they're kind of flattened down. But this is on Provia. I don't know. I'm still bummed by that last mud shot, or I'm not really all that excited about this one right now. My focus is fine. My focus is fine, but it just looks like a bunch of dirty leaves. Well, we'll see how the Velvia version does. Bummed about my mud crack shot. Okay, so here's another version of the mud crack shot. This was first light on it, but I'm gonna be at it. Well, now technically I did move my camera for this. I think I refocused. I mean, I'm dark, but let's see here. Yeah, I'm still a little out of focus for that rock. Well, that sucks. I mean, I'm too dark anyways. And the other light was better. This is why I love my ebony camera. I'm so much faster with it. Then here's the leaves on Velvia. Man, Velvia makes this one look nice, I gotta say. So if I go back to the Provia, so that's actually a really good example here. So we got Velvia, Provia, Velvia, Provia. I like the Velvia, I gotta say that. It's kind of interesting texture, interesting patterns and make sure I didn't bump anything. My focus is good. It's not perfect, but it's good. I'm okay with that one. Still don't know if I'm in love with it, but it's all right. And here's another photo that's not going to be in focus. So this is that same mud crack area, but before the golden light hit it. Now maybe somehow I had everything all set up fine, and then I bumped the camera and messed it up for that other photo. Which is not the case, because actually that other one was shot first. This one will not be in focus. Nope. I'm so close in some areas, but not in focus. That's a bummer. Oh well. And then here's this photo, which on Velvia, I will say is better than Provia. I don't know if it's enough to make me like it, but again, here's Velvia. There's Provia. Provia, you get kind of almost like a greenish tone in some of those areas in there. And then with Velvia, you do get a richer contrast, which to me, this is more like what I remember seeing with my eyes. Because I mean, this was like a rich copper tone. I might actually like this one. So it's interesting, Provia works well for some scenes, but Velvia for others. We'll see what I think about this one with time. I'm sharp, I'm really sharp. My exposure time was short enough where I don't have any wind moving any of the branches. So that could be one that I end up liking. So a little bummed about missing out on some of the Death Valley shots. But going into this, I wasn't expecting much from some of the photos that had like the sunset photos. We'll say at this point, I'm kind of back in the camp of this one. So if we say, I'm good with that one. And this one was not in focus. That one, I think I'm okay with. That's the Provia one, which I didn't like as much. Not in focus, and also not a good exposure. This one kills me. This one, I would have been very, very happy with that one had that been in focus. And I could have nailed that with the ebony. This might be my favorite of that scene. So that was a pretty cool scene. So far that's 3 in the keeper file. What are those guys? That one I think I'm good with, or at least whichever one's in focus. Not as dramatic as my other one, but it's got some interesting textures. So 4, it's not bad. That one I'm good with. I mean, it doesn't really have like the emotional appeal of some other scenes where it kind of, I mean, this is just a flat rock, but it's got a cool graphic look, so cool with that. The double with that one. There's my one that's not in focus. That one kills me too. Another one that's not in focus. And then this guy, of which I had the 2 variations, which I'm happy with as well. So even though the trip beat me down, even though some of the photos I was really looking forward to were not in focus, I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keepers. That is not bad. I want to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you around next time. If you love this content and want to help support my journey, you can do so by subscribing to my YouTube channel, telling a friend, or sending a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year with PayPal or Patreon. I depend on the generous support of people like you to produce this ad-free content. For more information on how to support me, please visit the donation section of my website. Thanks in advance for your support.